1,200 years of bloodshed. Two enemies finally agree to talk, and humans show up with jazz bands, marshmallow smoothies, and a sentient gravity field named Pip. But then something exploded in reality, and it might just be the best thing to ever happen to the galaxy. Asterisk in the year 3827, the galaxy was less a place of wonder and more a simmering pot of ancient grudges and interstellar tension. At the heart of this pressure cooker sat the civilizations older than most stars, the Vorith Dominion stoic, honor-bound, technological minimalist and the Thal'kin hegemonian, triarchal collective of telepathic strategists who could win wars with a single thought. They had been locked in a Cold War for nearly 12 centuries. It wasn't that they couldn't destroy each other. They absolutely could and had, many times over. But each time they rebuilt, the hate calcified further, until their conflict became more tradition than necessity. Entire generations were raised with the assumption that Vorith and Thal'kin would always be enemies. And then came Earth. Humanity had entered the galactic stage late, clumsy, and blissfully unaware of the delicate politics that danced between stars. They had no ancestral empires, no ancient grudges, and absolutely no respect for how things were supposed to be done, which is exactly why the Galactic Mediation Council chose them. When the request arrived at Sol Command, it came with all the subtlety of a dying star. Both the Vorith and Thal'kin, independently and almost suspiciously simultaneously, requested that humans be the neutral host for peace talks. It was unprecedented, it was suspicious, it was, frankly, a bureaucratic nightmare, and it landed right on Commander Riley Stroud's desk. Riley, sitting cross-legged on his office desk in socks and a faded t-shirt that read "Diplomacy is just intergalactic improv," sipped lukewarm coffee and stared at the briefing hologram with a mild squint. "So, just to be clear," he said slowly, "to superpowers who've been at each other's throats for over 1,000 years want us to host the peace talks." "That is correct," his AI assistant, Nova, replied. "Both sides cite humanity's cultural unpredictability and emotional volatility as ideal traits for a neutral arbitrator." Riley blinked. "That's either a compliment or an insult, and I'm not sure which. Statistically, it's both." He leaned back, cracked his neck, and smirked. "All right. Let's give him something they'll never forget." The Eden's Edge diplomatic exchange hub had been built 2 months earlier in orbit above the neutral zone of Hollow Spiral, a region of space so politically deadlocked that even rogue asteroids filed travel permits. To most species, it was a sterile marvel of symmetrical architecture and gravitational harmony. To humans, it looked like a mall had had a baby with a concert stadium, and then that baby had gotten into Burning Man. The structure bloomed like a rotating lotus, petal-like docks extending outward, each glowing with warm ambient lighting and colored solar sheens. 1,000 species had already contributed minor cultural installations, floating gardens, kinetic art, anti-gravity sculpture rooms. But the core. The beating heart of Eden's Edge. That was all Earth, a biodome with simulated sunsets, a culinary district featuring everything from Thai street food to protein-restructured Martian BBQ, sound-reactive walls that shimmered with music, and, of course, an amphitheater capable of holding 3,000 delegates or 20,000 dancing maniacs, depending on the hour. Riley stood at the central command balcony, hands on his hips, a slightly too wide grin spreading across his face as final preparations began. Nova, confirmed guest arrival schedules. Both delegations are en route. Vorith ship honors path arrives in 2 hours. Thal'kin cruiser Silent Thought arrives 17 minutes later. Per your request, translation beacons are tuned for informal social phrasing. Perfect. And the confetti launchers. Primed and loaded. Bardrome protocols, non-lethal, unless specifically provoked. He nodded. Satisfied. Good. Let's make history. Weird. 2 hours later, as the first Vorith envoy exited their ship hull, metallic and visibly confused, he was greeted not by a diplomatic security detail, but by a brass band composed entirely of robots in glitter tuxedos, playing the Vorith national anthem ... jazz style. Confetti rained from the ceiling. A child-sized alien offered him a chocolate-dipped churro. Commander Stroud stepped forward, wearing a tailored navy coat, a silver sash that read Peace Coordinator, and sunglasses that transitioned to star-shaped lenses under bright light. "Welcome to Eden's Edge," he announced, "the only place in the galaxy where peace talks come with cocktails, karaoke, and complimentary spa tokens." The Vorith delegate froze. Is this the preliminary ceremony?" Riley grinned. "No, Ambassador. This is the negotiation." Behind him, a human orchestra struck up a rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody in Valerian harp style, and 30 dancers in holographic silks descended from the ceiling on slow-moving gravity lifts. The war may have lasted a millennium, but Riley figured peace that could be achieved in 3 days, or at least, with enough fireworks, snacks, and EDM. It might just be worth trying. The docking bay shimmered with soft blue light as the silent thought eased into position beside the honors path. From the observation deck, Commander Riley watched the 2 ancient warships, symbols of centuries of silent rage, park like polite neighbors at a suburban barbecue. He took a sip of mango-flavored espresso and smiled. Let the fun begin. The Vorith delegation was the first to step into the grand atrium. Led by Archcale Velrix, a towering figure with polished bone armor and a cape woven from magnetic thread, they moved in perfect formation. Their faces were unreadable behind glimmering visors. Their boots clicked against the translucent floor in synchronized precision. They expected fanfare. Perhaps a solemn council, maybe a guarded escort to a high chamber of neutrality and negotiation. What they got was bass. Thick, heavy, pulsing bass. The moment the pressure doors sealed behind them, the room erupted in music. Lights danced overhead like playful spirits. A 6-armed robot DJ named Spinner ate scratched vinyl with one set of limbs, adjusted cosmic EQ levels with another, and served drinks from a rotating tray with the last 2. The Vorith froze. Is that ... a rave? Velrix asked slowly. It's a cultural immersion, Riley said, appearing beside them as if conjured by pure confidence. Welcome to Eden's Edge, where peace is not just signed, it's felt. Velrix turned, his voice flat. Commander Stroud, where is the negotiation chamber? You're standing in it. A robotic bartender with holographic antlers wheeled up, offering neon green beverages in glass flutes. Velrix stared at it as though it might explode. One of his aides sniffed the air and recoiled. The Thal'kin delegation arrived moments later, in a cascade of movement and telepathic murmurs. Tall, elegant, eyes glowing with soft violet light. They moved like dancers, or predators, or both. Their leader, Matriarch Seville, wore a crown made of living crystals that pulsed with her emotional state. She blinked once and took in the floating art displays, the aroma of interspecies cuisine, and the fact that one Thal'kin aide was already sampling what looked like chocolate-covered fried algae on a stick. What ... is this? She asked, her voice melodious, but tinged with suspicion. Riley grinned, arms open wide. This is us doing what we do best, throwing a party and solving problems, but there are no council seats, no formal agenda. Exactly, he said. No pretense, no politics, just shared experience, food, music, and maybe some competitive limbo later. Things get spicy. Commander Stroud, Velrix snapped, peace is forged through honor and discourse, not through whatever this is. You think we're not serious? Riley took a step forward, smile fading just a touch. We're the only species crazy enough to host a negotiation on a dance floor, because we know the only way to end a 1,000-year war is to make you see each other as people, not enemies. Before either ambassador could reply, a soft chime rang in Riley's earpiece. Go ahead, he muttered under his breath. Nova's voice buzzed discreetly. Sir, Dr. Mendez is requesting your presence in Core Lab 3. Something's off with the gravitic harmonizer. On my way. He turned back to Velrix and Seville. Enjoy the hors d'oeuvres. I'll be right back. And don't worry, your aides are being fitted for karaoke slots. Core Lab 3 was dimly lit, a hum of energy pulsing along the walls. Dr. Ayla Mendez stood at the central console, her hair in a loose bun, goggles pushed up onto her forehead. She wore a lab coat covered in patches, some scientific, some cartoon characters from 21st century Earth memes. Problem? Riley asked, stepping in. She glanced up, brow furrowed. Maybe. Remember, that miniature is gravitational stabilizer I designed to keep the central dome's atmosphere perfectly neutral. The one you calibrated using meditation rhythms and whale songs. Exactly, I think it's singing back. She tapped a screen. The waveform pulsed in sync with the music from the atrium above. That shouldn't be possible, Riley said, watching the data ripple. It's resonating with ambient emotional frequency, human emotion, not just human. She looked at him. All of it, every species here is feeding into it. It's learning, evolving. Riley stared at the data, then the gravitic field. Should I be worried? I don't know, Ayla said. But if this thing figures out how to manifest its own mood swings, we could be looking at the galaxy's first sentient vibe. A sudden flicker of light pulsed through the dome. A low, rhythmic tremor passed under their feet. Somewhere above, the music changed key. Riley exhaled slowly. Keep an eye on it. Oh, I will, Ayla muttered. And Riley? Yeah, Velrix is gonna blow a fuse if one more robot offers him a marshmallow smoothie. Riley smiled grimly. Then let's make sure the next one offers him too. The tremor returned stronger this time. A low, guttural hum pulsed through Eden's edge, like a deep breath being held across the station dot in Core Lab 3. Ayla stared at the readings in disbelief. The gravitational stabilizer had entered a feedback loop, amplifying emotional resonance into spatial compression. The waveform had started to collapse in on itself. Riley, she said, voice tight. The harmonizer's not just learning, it's reacting. It's pulling en masse. He leaned in, eyes narrowing at the data. Pulling how? Like a heartbeat, but inverted. Above them, in the grand atrium, the music cut out mid-synth riffs. Lights flickered. A deep silence fell, not peaceful, but anticipatory, like the air before a storm. And then, dead center in the dome right, where the kinetic sculpture of interwoven species symbols rotated in zero-G, a rupture bloomed. Small, at first, perfectly spherical, blacker than black, with a thin rim of swirling violet light, a miniature black hole. It hummed like a living thing. Ambassador Velrix spun around, his armor reacting defensively. We're under attack. Matriarch Seville's guards raised their energy lances. One fired instinctively, an impulse blast meant to disarm the sculpture. The beam vanished into the singularity without sound or light. Velrix barked, they've lured us into a trap. More energy weapons. Aides screamed. The crowd scattered. One of the food drones exploded in a puff of wasabi mist, and just before it all went to hell, Commander Riley jumped up on a snack table, grabbed a karaoke mic, and shouted, "Everyone stop. Nobody panic. Unless you're allergic to tequila." Dozens of alien eyes turned toward him. Even the Thal'kin blinked in unified confusion. Riley adjusted the mic, cleared his throat, and nodded toward the anomaly. That's not an attack. That's an oopsie. And we're working on it. Velrix took a step forward, fists clenched. You expect us to believe this collapse of reality is a casual accident? Yes, Riley said, dead serious. And I also expect you to believe it'll go away once Ayla finished bribing the laws of physics with smooth jazz and scented candles. He turned to the crowd, smiling like a man holding a grenade with a pin in his teeth. In the meantime, the bar's still open. 20 minutes later, the atrium looked like the aftermath of a galactic flash mob. The black hole, now stabilized and cordoned off with floating hazard tape and calming vapor emitters, hovered quietly in a containment field, no longer pulling mass, Just observing. Ayla sat cross-legged next to it, feeding it low-frequency tones through a hand-held speaker. She'd named it Pip. At the back of the room, Riley clinked glasses with Velrix and Seville, each nursing a cocktail in silence. The Vorith ambassador's drink shimmered like molten steel. The Thal'kin glowed an unsettling pink. You created a gravitational anomaly in a diplomatic summit, Velrix said flatly. Riley sipped his blue swirled drink. Technically, Ayla did. I just provided the venue, and now we are sitting in bean bags, Seville added, voice unreadable. Exactly. Welcome to humanity's secret weapon, radical emotional disarmament. Neither ambassador spoke. Music drifted softly from the speakers. Earth's jazz fusion, underlaid with ambient harmonics Ayla had programmed into the environment. Elsewhere, Vorith and Thal'kin aides mingled warily. A Thal'kin strategist was teaching a Vorith warrior how to meditate. Someone had started a chess tournament on a hollow table. Pip occasionally pulsed approvingly. Velrix finally exhaled. You are not diplomats, Commander. You are chaos wrapped in charm. Riley raised his glass. We don't do diplomacy. We do social renovation. Seville chuckled quietly. The sound like wind over ice. This method is unsustainable, she murmured. Probably, Riley agreed. But it works. Velrix turned toward him, eyes narrowing. This was never about peace talks, was it? Nope. What was it about, then? Riley leaned forward, voice soft but unwavering. Showing you that war isn't the only tradition worth preserving. That coexistence can be more than a ceasefire. It can be a culture. He gestured toward the scene before them, aliens laughing, food being shared, music filling the void where threats once echoed. You didn't need a negotiation. You needed a reset. Velrix stared a long time, then nodded slowly. You humans, he said. You don't resolve conflict. You rewire civilizations. Glad you noticed, Riley said with a wink, lifting his glass once more. Welcome to the reboot. The next sunrise over Eden's Edge wasn't technically a sunrise, it was a simulated, heliographic bloom across the interior dome, choreographed to match the golden light of Earth's Mediterranean coast, but it felt real enough. Warm, soft, hopeful. Velrix stood near the observation balcony, arms crossed, watching as members of his delegation shared breakfast with Thal'kin advisors. The previous day, they wouldn't even breathe the same air. Now they were trading recipes and arguing passionately over the ideal temperature for tea infusions. Commander Stroud, Velrix said without turning, this environment of yours, it disarms, confused, undermines, and yet it also stabilizes. Riley walked up beside him, yawning into his coffee mug. It's called a shared ecosystem. You put people together long enough, with enough snacks, music, and confusion, and they eventually stop shooting and start comparing dance styles. Seville approached from behind, expression as unreadable as ever. I've analyzed the interactions, the behavioral shifts, the neural harmonics in proximity to that miniature anomaly. You mean Pip? Ayla interjected, walking in with a tablet and a half-eaten pear tart. He's doing great, by the way. Hasn't eaten a particle weapon in 12 hours. We're proud. Seville raised an eyebrow. Your gravitational construct ... smiles. I think that's projection, Ayla said, but didn't deny it. She handed the tablet to Riley. It displayed an open architectural schematic of Eden's Edge with 3 new domes proposed: education, collaboration, and recreation, each designed to facilitate daily coexistence among species, shared housing, mutual learning spaces, cross-cultural arts. I propose, Ayla said calmly, we stop thinking of this as a peace summit. Let's stop aiming for a treaty on paper. Let's build a living agreement, one that evolves. A community, not a contract. Velrix blinked. You want us to live together? Seville answered before Riley could. Why not? It's already happening. Riley smiled. Look, documents don't keep peace. People do. And people only protect what they feel connected to. What they understand? what they love. Do you want peace? Give them shared lives, not shared signatures. Velrix frowned, and, if conflict arises, it will, Ayla said. And we'll solve it with board games, intense karaoke battles, and if necessary cake. That night, under a dome of artificial stars and subtle auroras, Eden's Edge hosted its first interstellar zero-G ball. Delegates floated in graceful arcs across the atrium, music resonating from a live ensemble of Thal'kin crystal harpists and human jazz percussionists. Gravity was dialed to 0 point, to Earth standard, just enough to feel like flying. Every species moved differently, some twirled, some shimmered. One Vorith delegate floated rigidly, unsure whether he was dancing or simply terrified. Ayla danced barefoot, laughing as she spun with a Martian ambassador. Seville and Velrix stood near the edge of the dance space, watching, sipping gently glowing cocktails. You're not going to dance? Riley asked, hovering lazily beside them. Velrix growled. Vorith do not frolic. Seville extended a crystalline hand toward him. Then perhaps. We redefine what that means. He hesitated. Then I took it. The sight of them, stiff warlord and luminous matriarch, moving clumsily but earnestly into the air, drew spontaneous applause. Even Pip pulsed once, in approval. Months passed. The Eden's Edge initiative expanded. New domes were added. New species arrived. Conflict dropped across 3 sectors. Former warlords now served as mediators. Former rivals co-authored novels. One joint Vorith Thal'kin musical became a sensation in 6 worlds, and at the center of it all stood Eden's Edge. Not just a diplomatic outpost, a new kind of civilization. A broadcast played nightly across hundreds of systems, footage of Velrix and Seville dancing, of Riley making a toast, of Ayla hugging Pip as he absorbed a malfunctioning food replicator to protect a child from shrapnel. The final line was always the same, Riley's voice steady and hopeful. Peace doesn't happen when we sign papers. It happens when we build something worth protecting together. And across the stars, something extraordinary began to grow. Not dominance, not deterrence, but understanding. And in that, the first true galactic alliance was born.